Hey everyone, Hannah here coming at you with another video, this time about artists that I have personally seen at different concerts and music festivals. I tried to compile a comprehensive list of all the different artists that I've seen throughout my life, but I'm sure there are gaps in there somewhere, and I'm sure inevitably I'll be thinking back on this video and going, oh my god, how could you forget this person and this person and this band? But I figured this is a pretty good list of all of the artists that have really inspired me and the artists that really speak to me the most. So I figured what I would do is do a little brief description of each artist and include photos if I happen to have photos from that concert or festival, and just give you a little taste of what each of their music styles is like to hopefully broaden your musical horizons, and hopefully I can get somebody to listen to some new music. So the first artist I want to talk about today is the Lumineers. I feel like this is a good place to start since it was actually the first live music that I ever saw. I remember this all the way back from high school. My brother brought me to my very first live music show, and I was so excited to be able to see what that atmosphere was like. And I remember enjoying the crowd the most at that show. I mean, the music was amazing, the vocals were great, the instrumentals were amazing, but the crowd of people just so into that band and so into those songs and just screaming their hearts out, it really gave me this special feeling that I knew I was going to continue to chase throughout all of my life, and I definitely have since then. So a couple songs that I would recommend you listen to are Ho Hey. That's one that I listened to live back at the concert, and a more recent song of theirs that's pretty popular and I like a lot as well is Ophelia. Next artist I want to talk about is Further. This is actually a Grateful Dead cover band, and if you know anything about me, you know that I am not a huge Grateful Dead fan. But a friend of mine convinced me to go by asking me to DD for them, and she said she would buy me the tickets, so I figured why not free live music. And I remember enjoying the street vendors before the show and enjoying the environment and all of the beautiful people that I met there the most. So even though I don't listen to them frequently, I can recommend Shakedown Street, because I mean, who doesn't love Shakedown Street? Next artist we have is 21 Pilots. I actually saw them open for Fall Out Boy when I saw Fall Out Boy in 2014, and then I saw 21 Pilots on their solo tour on Long Island with my brother in 2015, the following year. A couple songs I would recommend from them would be Car Radio and Stressed Out. Next up we have Fall Out Boy, a high school obsession of mine. I saw them in 2014 headlining the Barclays Center, as I just mentioned, and then I also saw them with Paramore when Paramore and Fall Out Boy did a summer tour together. And those were both really great experiences. I would say that I probably enjoyed Fall Out Boy on their own a little bit more than I did when they were with Paramore, but I really can't argue with either experience. They were both great. A couple of their songs that I would recommend would be Thanks for the Memories and Sugar We're Going Down. Now on to Selena Gomez. I saw Selena Gomez at the Stardance Tour in 2013. I was 18, maybe 19 years old, and I remember being so excited to go finally see her because I had been listening to her last album, that Stardance album, on repeat for like the past year. And when I saw tickets come up on StubHub that were front row tickets, I figured I had to jump on the opportunity. And for a long time, that was the most expensive concert that I had ever went to, and it was definitely worth it. I enjoyed that experience of being able to feel that upscale privilege of being in the front row and being able to be close enough that I could actually reach out and touch her if I wanted to. I didn't actually do that because I would have to have plowed through a bunch of little kids that were around the stage, and I didn't feel like that was a good place for me to be doing that sort of thing. But I really enjoyed that show a lot. A couple songs I can recommend by Selena are Stars Dance and more recently Souvenir. Next up we have Macklemore. I actually saw Macklemore in New York City when I was living on Long Island with my brother. I was able to just take the train over, and I went and saw Macklemore, and I absolutely loved it. I enjoyed being able to listen to all of the songs that I had fell in love with, and I loved it so much that when tickets on StubHub got super cheap the next day, I impulse bought them, and immediately after work drove all the way back to the train station, took the train back, and saw Macklemore again. And I don't regret it at all. That second day actually was even better. I got there 2.5 hours early, and I was 8 people back. And so as soon as we got let in, everybody started storming the front of the stage. And I remembered from being there the night before that the stage had essentially 3 tiers to it, and I decided to go all the way to the left where nobody was so I could plant myself right in front of there, and it created a really magical experience of Macklemore actually sitting down in front of me when he was singing Same Love, and that was just a really beautiful couple of nights. A couple songs I could recommend by Macklemore are obviously Thrift Shop, everyone knows that, and Same Love as well. Next up we have Datsik, who was actually the introduction to EDM for me. When I went and saw Datsik live, that was the first time I got to experience the true joy that EDM gives me. Unfortunately, there were some allegations that came out against Datsik a couple years ago, and I don't want to say any more on the subject, as I feel like it's not worth looking up his music, because there's no need to support somebody who could have such horrible allegations put against them. Next up we have Panic at the Disco that I saw in February of 2014 in New York City. It was at a really beautiful theater, and I wish I remembered the name of the theater because I loved it so much, but unfortunately that's been lost to time. A couple of songs I can recommend from Panic at the Disco are, of course, I Write Sins Not Tragedies, and the song Nicotine. Next up we have Hardwell. This was a rave that I went to just after I was getting super into the EDM scene. I assumed that I would enjoy a rave no matter what the music was. And to a certain extent that is very true about myself, but Hardwell was a good experience for me because it showed me that I don't love every single kind of EDM the same way that I love very specific kinds of EDM. So it was a very humbling show to go to, and I also think that the crowd that was there had a big impact on how I felt about Hardwell. And so unfortunately I don't have enough knowledge about his music to be able to offer some recommendations. So next up we have Paramore. I saw them at that aforementioned summer tour that Fall Out Boy did with them, and then I also saw them on their standalone tour 2 years ago at the Lakeview Amphitheater. And Paramore is just another high school obsession for me, and I love their punk rock vibe so much, especially in their earlier albums, and it's always a blast to see them play the songs that everyone knows and loves. A couple songs I could recommend from Paramore are obviously Misery Business and Emergency. Next up we have Brand New. I saw them twice in the first summer when I discovered them, and then a year later I saw them again at Brewery Omegang, and they have a nice punk rock, like kind of edgy style to them that creates a really nice live performance. A couple of their songs that I would highly recommend would be The Quiet Things That No One Ever Knows and 70 x 7. Next up we have Bass Nectar, one of the bass greats in the EDM genre. He has a very specific style that I feel like when you hear one of his songs, you immediately know it's him, while at the same time having a lot of variety between the different songs that he has. I saw him at Mysteryland in 2016, and then I also saw him at the Armory in Rochester. A couple songs I would highly recommend by Bass Nectar are Basshead and Fun. Next up we have Excision, one of my all-time favorite artists that I've actually seen 5 times, and I can't wait to see him again. He was actually the last artist that I saw just before coronavirus got out of hand and everything started shutting down, and I couldn't think of a better artist to play that last note that I would hear live for a while. His music is very grungy and bassy, and I absolutely love it and think you should give it a shot. A couple songs that I would recommend by him are Africa and Throwin' Elbows. Next up we have Crisley, an amazing EDM artist. Not somebody that I listen to very frequently, but somebody that absolutely slays at live shows. I would recommend listening to This Ends Now and Drop That Ass. Also at EDC New York, I saw Flux Pavilion, and that was my first experience with Flux Pavilion, apart from hearing a couple of his singles. And I really enjoyed seeing him on the main stage at EDC New York and listening to some of his newer hits at that time live. It was quite an amazing experience. A couple of songs I can recommend by him are I Can't Stop and Blow the Roof. Next up we have Knife Party, an extremely original artist. I feel like their music stands out against everything else in the EDM scene, and I feel like when you hear a song, you know immediately that it's Knife Party. Songs I would recommend from Knife Party are Friends and Begin Again. Next up we have the Front Bottoms. They actually opened for Brand New when I saw Brand New at Brewery Omegang, and even though I had never heard their music before, when I heard Twin Size Mattress being played live, I knew that they were going to be a band that I would continue to listen to even after that live event. Next up we have Carnage, where rap meets EDM in the most wonderful way. I saw them at the F Shed early on in my EDM experiences, and I also saw them at EDC Las Vegas. A couple of songs I would highly recommend from Carnage are Blitzkrieg and Bricks. Next up we have the Chainsmokers. I actually saw them at EDC Las Vegas. And if you don't know who the Chainsmokers are, get out from under that rock and go listen to Closer like the other 1.9 billion people that have listened to it on Spotify. So I would highly recommend Closer and Don't Let Me Down. Next up we have Abstract, who I saw at EDC Las Vegas. Very bass heavy and just really shakes your body when you're listening to it live, and I couldn't have enjoyed the experience more. A couple of songs I would recommend by him are Jesus and Gimme. Next up we have Alice in Wonderland, who I love. I feel like her music is very light and it always just seems to put a smile on my face every time that I hear it. I really enjoyed seeing her at EDC Las Vegas. A couple of songs I could recommend from her are You Don't Know and Church. Next we have Yellowclaw, a fun genre bender in the EDM scene. I saw them at EDC Las Vegas and then also at the local theater, the Westcott. A couple songs I'd recommend by them are In My Room and Techno. Next up we have Marshmallow, a super fun and upbeat EDM artist that I'm sure almost everybody has heard of. A couple songs I would recommend by Marshmallow are Friends and Come and Go, a song he did recently with Juice WRLD. Next up is Rusted Root, a band that I don't personally know too much about, but it's actually my friend Molly's favorite band, and I went to go see them with her in 2016, and I actually had a pretty good time. I don't have enough knowledge about their music to be able to recommend a song, but I enjoyed how folksy and nice it was. Next up is The Lonely Island that I saw at Bonnaroo last year. I really enjoyed their comedic take on music, and I feel like everybody can recognize at least one of their songs. I highly recommend I Just Had Sex and I'm on a Boat. Next we have Grammatic that I saw at Bonnaroo last year as well. I really enjoy his unique sound, and I really enjoy the variety that he has with all his music. Two songs I would recommend by him are Just Jamming and Fist Up. Next up we have Little Dickie that I saw at Bonnaroo last year as well. Another comedy artist, this time taking the comedic approach to rap. I feel like Little Dickie's songs are hilarious, and it was a really great experience to see them live. I highly recommend Pillow Talking and Save That Money by Little Dickie. Next we have Wooly, another bass legend in the EDM scene. I really enjoyed getting to see Wooly open up for Excision the last time I saw Excision this year. I highly recommend Thick Boy and Daydream by Wooly. Next is Rise Against, one of my all-time favorite bands. I saw them at a small theater in Chicago, and it was on their acoustic tour last year, and I just had an unbelievable experience. I was fortunate enough to have tickets that were only 2 rows back, and I feel like that only amplified the experience at that show. I highly recommend looking up Roadside and Swing Life Away by Rise Against. Next we have Kaizo, a very hard and heavy EDM bass artist. I would highly recommend listening to Fired Up and Killed It. Next we have Guns N' Roses, a band I saw in Hershey Park with my little brother. It was actually his graduation present that I was giving to him. And I'm sure you've all heard of Guns N' Roses, but if you haven't, check out Sweet Child O' Mine and Welcome to the Jungle. Next we have Above and Beyond that I saw in Syracuse. I really enjoy Above and Beyond for how light and fun it is, and the environment at the show was just unbeatable. I would highly recommend listening to Sun and Moon by Above and Beyond. Next we have Adventure Club, another artist that I absolutely fell in love with when I saw them live. A couple songs I would recommend by them are Next Life and Gold. Next we have Giant Panda Gorilla Dub Squad, a band I saw at Good Nature here in Hamilton. They are very folksy and they put on a great live show. I would highly recommend listening to Mr. Cop by them. Next we have Owl City, Sage's favorite band. I went and saw them in Philadelphia with her shortly after we got together. I highly recommend listening to Fireflies or Vanilla Twilight by them. Next is Snails that I saw at the Westcott in Syracuse, a very heavy, grungy bass artist that absolutely shakes your body when you see them at a live show. I'd highly recommend listening to King is Back and Shake the Ground, and just feel the bass from both of those songs and just imagine that at a live concert venue. Next is Tech Nine that I saw at the Westcott in Syracuse with Sage a couple years ago. I feel like all of his songs have a great beat and flow to them that makes you just want to continue to sing them for hours on end. I would recommend listening to Caribou Lou and Rock Your Head to get a good sense of the variety that Tech Nine has. Next up is Juice WRLD, my personal all-time favorite rapper. I saw him in Philadelphia and then at Bonnaroo last year, so I got to see him a couple of times last year, and I really enjoyed how he sounds live. and I really fell in love with his music when I continually put his albums on repeat, and they would continue to be just as good as they were the first time I had listened to them. I highly recommend Fast, and the one probably everybody knows, Lucid Dreams. Next up is 12th Planet, a heavy bass artist that I saw opening for Excision very recently and also at Bonnaroo last year. I really enjoy 12th Planet's sound. It sounds very old school, and there's great little mixes of funny anecdotes throughout the song that I feel give it a lot of variety and range and make it a very fun experience to be at live. I highly recommend Bubstep and Rubber Band Boys for songs to listen to by 12th Planet. Last but certainly not least, we have Millennium that I saw at Bonnaroo last year. Millennium was the EDM artist that I was looking forward to the most at Bonnaroo last year, and he definitely did not disappoint. I had such an unbelievable experience listening to all of his songs that I knew and loved so well at a beautiful place, and being able to share that with Sage made it all the much better. I highly recommend the song Feel Good, as well as the song Gold that he put out with Excision. And that about wraps it up for all of the artists that I have seen. As I said, it's probably not comprehensive, but I feel like it is a pretty good list of almost every artist that I have seen. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and give it a like, and please comment in the comment section below what artists you have seen and which events made you feel the most special, because I would love to hear the thoughts from all of you about music that you've seen and artists that you highly recommend seeing. Thanks for watching, and make sure you subscribe if you want to see more of my content in the future. Stay safe out there.